Hey, happy Saturday afternoon, everybody. And we appreciate you tuning in on a weekend to another fun show here on the Comic Art Live channel. Today, we've got artist and illustrator John Kurtz is going to be joining us. John emailed me about a month ago when he first signed up for CAF. And had some questions about the site and the users and about using the tools and resources that we have available. And just through speaking with him, I just thought, this would be a great person to have on the show. Somebody who, we have artist interviews all the time, but not somebody who's worked in these areas, in these licensing materials and game related art, coloring, storybook work. And so here we are today. And as it turns out, this is going to be John's first ever interview, which is clearly long overdue for a guy who's been in the industry for so long. So let me bring John in here and introduce him to everybody. Hey, John, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is great.
Well, it's my pleasure. Like I said, when we first started talking, I just thought, this would be good to, as a way to introduce you to the comic art fans community. I mean, we've been online for over 21 years, and we've only been doing these live streams for about 4. But I just felt like, this is a great way to introduce a new member to the site who I think people will be interested in seeing your work and learning about your career. And so yeah, I think it's gonna be a very fun conversation. So for me, what I wanted to kind of, you've been in the business for a long time, but how did you really get your start doing licensing work? Is that something that you wanted to do at the very beginning?
No, in the very beginning, I was doing Old West pencil drawings, and a long time ago, and I didn't really think of licensing at all, and went to, well, I had a kind of a strange thing. I always drew. I would fake being sick so I could stay home from school and draw something that I hadn't finished the night before. So I was sort of getting in that mode, I guess, then. But I drew a lot as a kid, but then I didn't do so much when I got a little older. I was working on cars and doing that, and drag racing and doing all that kind of fun stuff. A friend of mine and I, we got $100 car and we took off to go cross country in it. And in Missouri, a car hit us from behind, a couple of guys in the Army who were late getting back to the base, and hurt my back. So in that recovery time, I was at my folks' house and I started to draw the pencil drawings, the Old West stuff. And I got myself a show. And I did that, and actually that went pretty well, and I really liked it. And at the same time, I was doing cartoons and sending cartoons off to magazines, gag cartoons, and I really liked that. And time goes on, wanderlust sort of hit me, and so got a one-way ticket to Europe, a Eurail pass, and ended up traveling around Europe. I met my wife in Spain, who was from Holland, and worked in Amsterdam for 4 years. And I say that's really where I kind of learned advertising art, because in those days in Holland, humor was used for advertising. And so a lot of cartoon work, a lot of big cartoon campaigns. And when we got back to the US, they didn't do that here. And so I was scratching around doing things for product illustrations. I would do cans of beans, cans of corn, for newspaper ads, doing that. And I was in Oregon at the time. And going down the highway, I'd always run into the Viewmaster water tower. I could see it all the time, and I didn't think much of it. I just thought maybe it was a factory or a warehouse. But one day, I had my portfolio with me, and I walked in, and it was really different than I thought. It was a place where they actually made artwork, and they did cell painting for the reels. So I got a job cell painting, and that was the first time I was actually around Disney and the licensing idea of it. And then I started to find out that I could copy styles, doing drawings for them, artwork for them, and painting for them. And I started to get the idea that, okay, I could do Disney. I think I did DuckTales first for one of the real sets. And then I started to get into Sesame Street because they were doing Sesame Street and they were looking for somebody who could draw it. And so I started to do that. And one day I asked the art director at, it was then CTW, but it was Sesame Street, if I could get approved to do Sesame Street artwork for storybooks. And he said, yeah, just send in a sample. And I did. Went back a couple of times and I got approval to do that. So I was at Viewmaster and I was doing artwork, and I was trying to get approved also for Disney artwork, but I was doing the 3D, you know the 3D for Viewmaster, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I never knew. I always thought it was a camera trick when I first kind of was around it, but what it really was, and I was asked if I wanted to learn how to do it, and I would be the third person to ever learn how to do this, is you draw the right eye picture, you put it in a machine and view it, but then you have to do the left eye picture from the different angle. Like if you were to close one eye and look at your hand with your right eye, you see it one way, and switch your eyes, you see that from the left eye a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that for every line on the picture. So it has to all be perfect, and you do it and you keep viewing it through this viewer to get all the line work actually perfect for what the front to back is.
Mm-hmm.
And they would make cells of those and then they would be cell painted. So I did that for a while. Then they wanted me to be art director. And I did that for a year because the day I got to be art director, I decided I didn't want to be art director anymore. And I started asking around, got some freelance work with Sesame Street, and wanted to do a sample for Disney. I have the first sample I did for Disney. I did this first for Disney, right? And
What year was that, John?
gosh, that goes back to 80, 85, 84.
Okay.
And they said, that's not bad, but do one more. Which is kind of unusual because usually you didn't get that kind of, you didn't get a second chance with Disney.
Right. They saw promise.
Yeah. So then I did this one. This is in a frame from the house. I don't know if you can see it. I did this one of Mickey and Minnie. So that got me approved, which was really terrific because come to find out, when a licensor wanted to, or a licensee wanted to make a game or a book,
Mm-hmm.
they would ask Disney, which artist can we use? And so they were sort of stuck with whoever artist that Disney said could do that book. So the prices were great. And that's just how I got into that. And just first I did Mickey Minnie, and then I would do some of the storybooks. And then as the movie started to come out, I started to get involved in doing publishing for Disney Press or Scholastic or any of the other ones to do.
It sounds like so like when Lion King came out or those sorts of things, you started working with in those as well. Were you ever exclusive with any of the licensees that you worked with for any length of time? I mean, maybe when you were art director, right? But when you did work with Disney, were you only working for them?
No, I worked for them. I would have them on a table, and then I'd have Sesame Street Project going at the same time. And it was really a freelance idea. I mean, they gave you a universal approval. I could do any of the classic characters and any of the movies that came out. It seemed like once I got approved, everything was like open for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same way with Sesame Street. And yeah, that was just very busy. And they and it happened the same way with I was asked, can I do a sample for Winnie the Pooh? And so I did a little black and white drawing of Winnie the Pooh. And they said, okay. we'll give you a book, which was the Honey Tree book. That's back in like 80, 87, 88, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And they just loved it. I did it in color, and then they started giving me more and more books. And then over all that time, I'd done about 25 Winnie the Pooh books in all different sizes and shapes, and hardcover, softcover. And as you could probably tell, I got a lot of Winnie the Pooh drawings and inks laying around the house.
Right. I mean, that's one thing that we talked about, before the show started. But you've pretty much kept everything that you've ever created in 40 plus years of doing this kind of work, which is surprising. But I'm grateful that you discovered CAF, so you can start sharing some of it with everybody. But speaking of the Winnie the Pooh stuff, we have a piece that we're going to show later for sale, and that was it was a sketch piece, and I know that as part of that, or it was full line art, but the finished work was painted. So was that kind of the process? You would do the line pencil line art and then send that in to get approval before you would do the paintings?
Yeah, what would happen is I do a really rough layout of the cover, and in those days they wanted to see it. So you would do it. You would drive to the FedEx place because they didn't pick up in those days. They would deliver, but they'd never pick up. So you drive, put it in a package, send it off to Disney. They would mark it up, change this, make this different, send it back. Then you would redo it, send it back, go to the FedEx office, come back. And it went on and on, back and forth. And then they finally would say, okay, that's good. You go ahead and paint it. And then I would transfer it onto watercolor paper. And then I would paint it. And then back to the FedEx office. Hopefully, the thing about Disney was great is that you send it off to them, the final. And if you didn't hear anything at all, that's what you wanted. You didn't want them to comment. You just wanted them to be totally quiet. That minute was fine, and they would just go on to the next thing.
Would they pick up the phone and call you, or would they just send it back with with some markups on it? What was their usual correction process?
There's always markup because they had everything on on lists, and they wanted it all. I don't think they trusted back and forth on the phone. I think they wanted it all written down. And the only time, once in a while, I would get a phone call after a book was done saying that they really liked it, but that was different than during the process. And after that, I just kept going on, and I was working with Sesame Street, and that was at the time when Jim Henson was still around. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I got approved with them, there were only a dozen illustrators in the whole world who were allowed to do Muppets and Sesame Street, the early Sesame Street characters. And so I have a bunch of that too. I have the old Muppet stuff and the baby Muppets and a lot of Sesame Street stuff, some color stuff. And because the thing about Henson, what was great about him, he would give you a model sheets that this is how tall this character was in relation to that character, but you could paint it any way you wanted. And Disney, that wasn't that way. Disney, you had to paint it exactly as it was supposed to be done. So that's why Sesame Street work back then looks all different, which was really fun to do because you could change up as you went along. As you got better, you were allowed to get better. At Disney, you weren't allowed to get better. You were just supposed to be there already.
Right. What kind of liberties did you take with the Sesame Street characters after you got familiar with them?
Yeah, I did some in cell paint. I did some in watercolor. I did some in gouache. I did some with airbrush. And then eventually they got to the digital time. But all that stuff before was terrific to do. And I don't have it here, but I have a nice big sample. I'll show you one of these days. It's really nice. It's Bert and Ernie. I did all the major characters and stuff for their magazine and games also. And it was pretty much the same with them too, because once you were approved, it was Sesame Street who told the licensee who they had to work with on that project.
So when you would do that, was Sesame Street still involved in the final approval when you would be working with somebody who licensed it for a board game or something like that? I mean, how is the work process there?
Yeah, because I would send it to I did something for Milton Bradley, for example, and I would go through them, and then they would deal with Sesame Street on their end, and
Got
then
it.
back through the same way and go back and forth that way. And so in reality, I barely talked to anybody at a lot of these places. It was just work and one to the other. And then how I got to Cartoon Network was really interesting because a fellow that was the art director at Disney, who did all my Pooh books, he went and got a job at Cartoon Network. So he called me and asked me if I wanted to do some Cartoon Network stuff. And that was terrific because there was a whole new bunch of characters, but it was all done with a nice big black thick outline in those days,
Mm-hmm.
which was perfect for me because I just love inking, and I love inking on acetate. And it was just at the time where there was a little bit of cell painting going on, but it was starting to do digital paint, but I was still doing all the inks in on acetate, which like today you'll see the one with Dexter and Mandark on the cover
Right.
of that.
Do you have some pieces there that you can show us?
Yeah, well, I have.
Inking on acetate isn't something that we get in in comic art collecting too often. We get inking on vellum, because some artists prefer the tooth of the paper and that sort of thing. But acetate isn't common except for people who collect animation artwork, typically.
Yeah, that's interesting because animation art, it's so beautiful, but there's something different. Animation art can be there's the key art, the best scenes from, or the best frame from a scene.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the other ones in between, and then there's another great scene or another great image from and so if you're collecting them, you don't always get the key scenes. But when you're doing illustration for a book, every page is a key scene because they scrutinize each page.
Right.
It's right there in front of them. They don't have to look at it as it goes by. And so they're very, very hard on it. It has to be just right. And
now, were you trained to use acetate as a base to ink on, or is it something that it just came to you, as an epiphany one day?
Yeah, what was odd was Viewmaster would take a drawing. I have one. Oh, here's one. This is a lady in a tramp drawing from Viewmaster. I don't know if it pops up. That might get some glare.
Oh, we can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's done on a vellum with a mechanical pencil, right?
Okay.
And so they would take that. That's as dark as it needed to be. They would do it in a photographic way and burn it onto a cell, and then it would be cell painted. So that was acetate that it was on. So I couldn't do that. So I decided to go ahead and actually ink on one side, on the top side, and paint on the back side, which I liked because paper to me it's got that tooth to it, and I couldn't get the smoothness I was after. And so I love the slickness. Like here's a mini.
So that's ink on acetate.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I like the slickness of it when I'm doing it because it's so smooth. And
that's all brush, right? That's incredible.
Yeah, the only part that's not brush is around the eyes, which are done with a Kohinoor pen, but all the rest is brush. And so like this, let's talk about the Dexter one. Let me grab this. See, that would be my first little sketch.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would send back this with comments.
Stances. Okay.
And then I would go ahead and do this practicing. And then when that was okayed, then I did the ink that you'll see later. That's part of the sale is the ink actually that goes on the cover of the book.
That's pretty cool. One thing as comic art collectors, we love to see the process. we love to see the notes and the margins that the editor might do. So just seeing that first overlay where they said, widen the stances on the characters, and change it up. We
Yeah.
love that stuff
Ah,
because that's just a part of the process that that throughout the normal reading of a comic book or something you never ever get to see. And again, it goes back to, I think, many of us are creatives and we enjoy that because it's a bit of insight that we would never ever have the opportunity to see before.
yeah. And some editors were a lot more. Some would actually say a lot more. Some would
Mhm.
just go to the point, like that one. That was pretty normal for a first sketch, and because really they didn't know what they were going to get as a first layout from me,
Mhm.
so they didn't change the layout. They just wanted certain adjustments to it.
That's cool. Rich Cirillo in the chat has done a little bit of work in the arts. He says inking on acetate was done a lot in the t-shirt industry that he worked in for manual color separations. Interesting. I mean, in comics, acetates are used a lot when you have like an overlay, right? So they ink on board, and then maybe they're doing paste ups, and they'll do the paste ups on the acetate so they can put that over it. But yeah, not in comics. It's just not something that was done too often, if at all. I can't think of too many times I've seen anything like that. But that's interesting. But again, back then you're still, all that's through the mail. So you do the first extra pass, send it in, and 2 weeks later you get that marked up vellum overlay.
Yeah, that's why you couldn't be exclusive with anybody, because you needed to be doing something else while that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're talking about all the interior pages of the books too. Each of those pages is the same as the cover. You do a layout, you send it in. The cover you would do separate, send that in. The layouts for the interiors, you would do all of them, send them all in, and then they would mark them up, and then you go back and forth as a group, because it's the covers that they really cared about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't at that time I had a computer to do, when they were doing digital color, I had the computer to do the color, but I just hadn't gotten a tablet yet to do inking, because I can do inking in the computer as well, but you don't end up with anything. You don't end up with something you can hold and something you can see. And I really like that. I'm glad I kept it. I'm glad I did it that way, because it was easier for me at the time and I really liked doing it. But I have all these inks now, because I have, like, for example, like here's an ink from Dumbo, and I wouldn't have that if I did it all in the computer, even though I colored it in the computer.
Right.
So, and then I have the pencil sketch of that as well. But like this one I just did of SpongeBob. On the cover, on the front, there's black ink, and then there's also the green with a brush, just like it's supposed to be. So
Mm-hmm.
everything on the front, and then all the cell paints on the back. So if you talk about markups, I got tons of stuff with all kinds of comments on everything.
Well, like I say, honestly, that is what I mean. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think a lot of times, again, I think everybody would always love to get, if you can get like the color guide, that was done for a piece of art. That's always nice to have, like every step in the process that got you to that published page. I mean, again, it's just, I think it's in most collectors' DNA to, they love being able to see all that. And again, it's fun, and it's just amazing that you've held on to literally everything that went back and forth. Not the envelopes, I imagine, right? The FedEx boxes and those sorts of things didn't survive.
But the thing was that they were all in boxes, and they followed us around wherever we moved, and they were always in the attics. And they went through the heat and the winters. And when I finally started to uncover them all, they were all in perfect shape. And I think I lost one or two. They got a little brown around the edges, and I don't know how they all protected themselves. The acetate was perfectly flat, and all the ink was still there, and the tracing papers and the paintings. And I was always so busy that I never cataloged anything or organized anything. And if you could see my room, you would understand. it's it's the last 5 jobs on top of each other. You know, I'm a big layer believer because I know where everything is. But I'm starting this job, I'll just keep adding to the piles. And so it never really ends. And so having all the old stuff kind of is overwhelming because I'm not the best organizer. So I'm just now getting to the point where I can put the inks with the sketches and the layouts. So I'll have a better, like you say, the whole story together for each one of them. Because each one of the inks has the pencils too.
Right. Right. The prelim, the finished pencils in some cases. Yeah. So, I mean, so you're still actively doing licensed work? Is that, because we never really talked about that, kind of like where you were at in your career doing these things. I know that, a lot of the pieces that we're going to look at for sale today are from like mid 80s to early 90s, up into early 2000s.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing lots of things. Not only do I do licensed work, but I do lots of things for education. I've done coloring books, activity books, Christmas cards, birthday cards. I've done things for, I've done from pre-K art. So it looks like a pre-K kid up to National Geographic. So realistic dinosaurs. I don't even, that montage that you have has a lot of variety in it. And it's all that other stuff too. Yeah, there's dinosaurs, there's realistic boats, there's things that just pop up that I get to do. The licensing stuff is a lot different these days because when a movie comes out, they just like to take stills from the movie and put it into books. And so for somebody to actually paint books is rare again, and which is really too bad because, but I understand it's just, they can cut and paste into a book very quickly and change the cover when they want to and just move on to the next thing. But I mean, I'm looking at that and I see there's some educational things on there, but yeah.
Right. I see the tree with the roots, and but then of course we see a Coca-Cola bear, a grumpy cat, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Little Mermaid, Superman. You kind of touched on. There's NASCAR in there as well.
Yeah, I got to do that for the Coca-Cola for the Earnhardts. And I do for Cartoon Network Zombie Island artwork, and I know I've talked to you about that. I wrote you an email about that I have all those preliminaries and all the inks that went on.
Right. Yeah, actually, where was that? I actually made a slide.
Yeah,
of
there it is.
I like that.
Yeah,
I've got a fair amount of Scooby-Doo artwork from Polish comics, and no animation cells or anything like that. But I mean, the thing is, the wonderful thing about collecting original art is, you can share it with your family, right? So when my kids were young, I always tried buying things that I thought they would enjoy, or at least I hope they would enjoy. I enjoyed buying it for them at the very least. So, like I mentioned, I picked up like SpongeBob storybook illustrations, and I have a few Scooby-Doo covers, just things of that nature. A couple Bugs Bunny books.
Yeah, I have to say, I have a lot of things that a lot of families would really like for memories that the parents had. And a lot of the books that they read when they were kids or had read to them, they probably remember if they see the covers. And a neat thing I can do is I can recreate those covers, or I can recreate those pages if there's something that they want. And I'm still just as good as I was, and I'm still drawing and painting, and it's just what I do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I wanted to stress, because obviously I have a link in the show description to your Comic Art Fans Gallery, but we're just going to be showing like 20 pieces from John. He's got thousands of pieces out there. So if there's things that people want to make inquiries about, if you've ever worked on things, or somebody wants to say, show me any of the Sesame Street books, like book covers or something like that. It might take some time to find some of them, but they're out there. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you'd written I think in one of the emails that we had, you had said that a lot of times, like for instance, with the Winnie the Pooh artwork, where we have a finished pencil drawing, the when you got that back and you're able to keep that, but in some cases, when you would send the finished painted piece back to Disney, that artwork didn't always come back to you. Is that true?
No, they kept everything. They kept most everything. And sometimes come to find out, some of the people that worked at Disney or the publishing companies would grab a piece for themselves. But no, Sesame Street would send art back to the artist. Disney never did. But there's an exception to that. I worked on a Milton Bradley project for a game, which was Lion King game. And I had a contract with Milton Bradley to get my art back. And they had to honor that, even though that was not customary. So I get that art back. And there's one of them for sale, the Elephant Graveyard with hyenas. That's up on the, I think I sent that to you, or you have an image of that as well.
We do. Yeah, that's one of the pieces we have, I think, for sale. Yeah.
Those are very, very rare to have, to even see.
So even when you work through a licensor, you still didn't get the artwork back unless it was expressly defined in your agreement to work with them.
Yeah, or unless sometimes the art director would just send it back.
Yeah.
Because most of the time it didn't really say in a contract, except the Disney ones tended to.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted it back, or they were going to keep it anyway. So their vaults are just filled with all kinds of amazing artwork. But I have to say, most art directors would send stuff back.
Well, that's good. And there's always stories in our hobby where I can't even remember. I think it might have been like Topps, because they did a lot of licensing work back in the day, didn't return a lot of the artwork, and then somebody uncovers just boxes and boxes and boxes of Topps related license related artwork, right? Whether it was used in bubblegum cards or you name it, Marvel, DC heroes, and then all of a sudden that stuff comes out on the market, but it never was returned to the artist back in the day. And a lot of them, you don't even know who did the work, right? Because it wasn't signed.
Right, yeah. And there's no pencils to go with it. Pencils they didn't care about. Pencils you could keep, but it actually gives you the proof that you did it because you have the pencils for it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one day I walked into Viewmaster and one of the ladies said to me, "Well, you should go to the back because they're throwing everything away," and they'd already tossed just thousands of images of things that were done. It was such a shame. They just did it, it was, so which makes everything that does exist very rare,
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's like my mom threw away my baseball cards, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, at least with baseball cards, you can replace those. The artwork, you can't, right? And that's the story, in on the illustration and comic art side of things too, in the 40s and 50s and even into the early 60s. A lot of that stuff, the publishers only cared about having the the proof page. They didn't care about the original. They wanted to just make sure they had something that they could reprint from very easy. So the originals were less important to them versus the production art that they had made. Mine's a little not drawing the exact name for it. Somebody in the chat will help me. But production artwork. They'd make a line art scan and transfer it onto another paper. That's the thing that they wanted to keep. So the originals got tossed all the time.
They just want they want their life to be easy. I mean, it's just the way it goes.
Right. You can't store everything forever. But look at you. You've been moving it around for a few decades. So, I kind of get where they're coming from. But at the end of the day, they don't want to rent more warehouse space to store the artwork. But, boy, the things that have been lost to many landfill over time is very unfortunate.
Yeah, that is true.
Especially today, I think the narrative arts and the licensing art from Disney, all of that stuff is being looked at so differently today. It's being looked at, and for its cultural significance, its collectability, and the idea that so much of that early artwork is lost forever is, it's tragic, and it makes us as collectors really realize how important our role in the whole process is, right? We need to take care of the artwork because you want to make sure it's there for another generation, and again, that's why it's so wonderful that you've kept everything that you've worked on over your 40-year career, because again, some people might have just said two moves back that it's time to just throw it on the throw it on a fire, and just send it on its way.
I
So
know.
we
No,
appreciate that.
it is amazing. It is amazing that it's still around. Yeah.
Let's see here. Mr. Easy Go Lucky in the chat said that he's worked on many Disney posters and he never received any artwork back.
Yeah. It's somewhere though.
Right.
Or,
With Disney, they have the warehouse space to set it aside somewhere.
or some
But
art has it in their house framed up real nice. That's.
yeah, there's and there's stories in in our side of things. Stan Lee giving away artwork to the mailman at Marvel's offices, or if a kids group was coming through, he'd sign his name to stuff and hand it out. Just because again they didn't value it, or they valued it differently back then.
Yeah. Yeah. It is because you're always working on the next thing. You're not really thinking so much of what you just did,
Hmm.
because it's always work for hire, and you do it, you get paid, it gets accepted, and the next thing's on your table, and you just go on. And that's been how it's been all those years.
I want to read a couple other comments in the chat that I saw. Let's see. Ed Rovando says, I read a lot of comics drawn by John in my childhood and adolescence here in Brazil. So
Really?
that's interesting. And then what do we got here? CW said, that's how I got into comic art buying, through picking up children's book illustrations. That's right. I mean, you never, there's a lot of paths come into art collecting through different ways, right? I mean, sometimes it could be children's book illustrations, or potentially it could be, just going straight into comic art or commissioning an artist somewhere, and then you're hooked. And then what did David say? David said, I have a few pieces of Sesame Street book art, and they are some of their favorites. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something comforting. There's something from your childhood. And when I was younger, I loved the comics. I loved Superman comics, the Spider-Man, Batman. I was just amazed at the artwork, and the stuff on your site is just incredible to me. And I sometimes just marvel at that. And the skill level is great. I mean, it's just wonderful stuff.
Have you ever been out to, like, either an art show or some kind of a Disney event where you were able to, I'm John Kurtz. I've done these Winnie the Pooh books. I mean, have those opportunities presented themselves throughout your career at all?
No. And I'm going to do one this coming up weekend. We're going to have an outdoor thing. I'm going to try to sell some small framed things and see how it goes, and do it that way, because nobody asked, I didn't push it. I was always so busy. And to me, it was always, what's next? And to be doing an interview is just, okay. I'm 69 now, so one time is good,
Right. Well, hopefully the first of many. I mean, it's something that, because I know they have Disney art shows and things like that.
Yeah.
I know that I'm down here in Orlando, or near Orlando, and I started an art show in January. And when I was talking to some of the locations, trying to find a place to rent for the hall, like one of the places said that they have an annual Disney art exhibit that has like 40 artists that come in and set up and things. And so I know those things are out there, right? And it's just, I get it. You're a workaholic, John. You felt your place was behind the art table, and that's admirable. But I think it's cool that we're able to do this now.
Yeah, I should get out more, right? That's the way I should do it. Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's workaholic's a good term, because I always felt like I just had to keep going and just do the best I can on every single one, and that was.
Well, you sent me a couple of videos, just like, these are really short. They're less than a minute, just showing you, doing a piece. So, it just kind of shows sort of your skill set, or in some ways part of your process. But let me see. I uploaded them, and like this is that Ed and Eddie, which I just think it's fun. I don't know where you're going with it until you start laying down the inks, and then it all comes together.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
here, let me play this one. I just think this is fun to watch. And yeah, I'm looking at it and I know where we're going, but I'm thinking it's so incomplete right now.
Yeah,
And
there's
then
nothing. Yeah, it's got to have the ink around it.
right. And I'm thinking, it's okay. But then it's like boom, and all of a sudden it's all going to come together.
Yeah, I have that for sale, and I also have the original ink of that was used on the cover of a book.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, we're going to show that one on a little bit. Well, not too long from now when we show some of the pieces that are available. And then this Winnie the Pooh piece and Tigger it's a little different because it doesn't have the line work in it, but it's equally fun to watch the process here.
yeah, these I really like doing from pages that I've painted before, and just do them in colored pencil. And I like the softness of them, and they're a little furrier, which is really nice.
So now this one you wouldn't have done on acetate and then painted it like a cell, because the Winnie the Pooh always was kind of a little sketchy, a little toothy in the illustration, right? So it just fit
Yeah,
the style.
yeah, that was done on a little smoother Bristol board, which
Hmm.
picks up colored pencil real nice, real nice.
So did you go, in doing those like licensed characters like that? I mean, before you would start Winnie the Pooh, did they kind of give you the scoop on like what paper they'd like to see you work on, or was it more like, here's the character sheets, as long as you can kind of match the style, we don't really care what you draw on?
Yeah, they would send you for each book. They would send you a new set of um, style guides because they kept changing on their end. All
Hmm.
the They would change colors a little bit. The characters would evolve a little bit. So they didn't really care what I did it on, but I picked a really nice paper, a 140-pound hot press D'Arches watercolor paper.
Hmm.
Real nice stuff. It holds a lot of water. You can go over it many, many times, and it never falls apart. And so it ends up being really nice. You can also airbrush on it really nice, which is something that I taught myself how to do airbrush when somebody asked me, some client said, I have a project for you. Do you know how to airbrush? And I said, yeah, sure. And I then go buy an airbrush and practice real quick, and did that for him. And I got into airbrushing too. And it worked that way when I had to paint gouache for Disney. I had to do a project, and the art director said, well, have you painted in gouache before? And I said, yeah, sure. And I had to go buy gouache and figure it out. But that's kind of how my whole life's been that way. The digital stuff too. It's good advice for someone in freelancing. Just don't turn anything down. Just figure out how to do it is the best thing.
How do you get yourself in the mindset around it, character styles, right? Because Cartoon Network characters clearly came in all different shapes and sizes and characterizations, and of course Disney, Ninja Turtles, you name it. The thing is, I mean, did you have to do a lot of you know preliminary work just to kind of get your heads in the proper space to draw the characters the way they wanted them?
Not really, because it seemed pretty clear to me anyway. There's certain clues they give you, like that Ed, Ed and Eddie piece, or that style. I mean, it's very thick, it's very bold. And so you would never put a thin outline around that. And so you just do it, and I don't know, maybe it's kind of weird to say, but it's kind of easy for me to look at something and go, okay, I know how to do that. And then just go at least do the preliminary stuff and the sketching. But my real focus is always when it's finals.
Hmm.
I'm a little sloppier when it comes to the layouts and the pencils, because I know when I get to the inking part, or to the color part, that's where I put where it really pay more attention to it in that sense.
Okay. Well,
But
that is certainly a gift, John.
yeah, I just, it's okay because it works out because I've done so many different things. And sometimes, like for Coca-Cola Bears, for example, I kind of did it any way I wanted to, and they liked it. So that's, sometimes you go by that when it's
Mhm.
something new that I was up to. Yeah, like that. I mean, I did that, and then I did a little tighter one, but they didn't really care so much about that. They wanted to see what it looked like. You know, if they didn't like that one, then I would have had to redo it, which would have been difficult.
So, with something like this, do you just have the prelim, or do you have the finished artwork? I mean, what did Coke leave you with when you were working on things like this?
Well, what Coke did at the time, the Coke Bear existed as an animated commercial, but they were looking for someone to do it, make a bear for a product and merchandise. So I came in and they kind of told me what they were looking for, and I went back and I did some sketches and I did a couple of colored examples. But what ended up being, I did it for 3 years, and what I did each year, I made a new style guide that when someone wanted to put a Coke Bear in their product, they could just go to the CD and pull it out. And so it was really final artwork that was used all over the place. So if you had I have one, there's Hot Wheels and there's a Coca-Cola car and then there's a bear in the background. They just pulled it right off of the CD that I had made for them. So that bear on there, I have the original drawings from that bear, and it was kind of a fun off. It wasn't really supposed to be anything. The bear stepping that way, it was supposed to be like that's. But then all of a sudden they said, "Oh man, we can put that on the race car," and it worked. It worked great.
See, I look at this stuff and I think there's a NASCAR fan out there that really wants that art, John. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and that's the cool thing about, where, with working with these license type products and characters and things, is that it touches so many different people in different ways than, than again, the usual comic art, work that we collect. Because, if you don't read comics or you don't go watch superhero movies, you know, I don't watch NASCAR, but there's certainly a whole lot more people watching NASCAR these days than there are reading comic books. So there's 100,000 people probably that remember, this drawing or this image, and yeah, I think that's amazing. And again, back to even the fact that you've worked in storybooks for Disney, magazines with Sesame Street. I mean, kids have seen your work over and over and over and over again. And I just think that's really special. To be a traditional artist and have had this much, success. Back to you being a workaholic, never taking a break. I just marvel at that. I think it's fantastic.
Oh, thanks. But I can sit here among all these piles of it, and it doesn't. I'd like people to have it. I'd like to sell it because, um, like you say, it brings back a memory to people. You know, probably a different memory than I had doing it, because to me it was sitting in a room doing it. But for someone else, they got something different emotion about that, or a book, or a story, or even a certain page out of a book, and they can have that again on their wall, which I think it's kind of a full circle thing. I think it's kind of important.
Somebody needs to call the Earnhardt family and talk to them about that piece. But no, I get it. I totally get it. And let's see here. I was trying to look through some of the images I pulled together. You sent me that Olympics piece, and I just wanted to show that off to people because I just thought it was fun. And I did have a few questions for you on it. I mean, it's a good story, which I want you to relate to everybody. But I mean, when you did this, I mean, were you thinking, like Mad Magazine and that sort of feel that that I think was out there during the time, because this was done for the '84 Olympics, and it took me a while. I pretty much looked at every character that was in this thing, and it's fun, and it just reminds me of cracked Mad magazines that I read as a kid. And how did you end up getting a gig to do something for the Olympics?
Well, the thing was, it was really odd. That was something that in Holland, when that was done in Holland, um, that was something that a lot of cartoonists like to do. It was a company would, let's say a factory would have a cartoonist come in and do their whole process in a fun way like that. So one time I was working on one, I did that on the wall. It was so big that I had to just tack it to the wall and draw it and ink it and paint it, which painting watercolor on a wall is not the easiest thing to do. But a friend of mine came to visit in Holland, and we got to talking, and he said, "Wow, I was doing something else," and he said it would be neat if we did one for the Olympics, and he would print it and sell it. And so I said, "Sure." So I did this. Mad Magazine. I love Mad Magazine. I think I read as many as I could when I was a kid, but I just liked the madness of it all. And at the time, there was complaints about there were too many sponsors and there were too many. That's why there's no country sponsors. It's all flags of companies. And so I did it. I had a really nice picture made of it for printing, sent it to him, and he printed it up, got down to the Olympics. The morning that the Olympics opened up, he had it on the back of his car, and the police came by, gathered up everybody who was out there and said, if you're not inside this specific zone to sell, you can't sell. Threw them all in the dumpster. And there's about 25 left that he gave to me after I saw him afterwards. But the funny thing was, during all that, there's a jet plane crashing in the background, behind the blimp.
Yeah.
And KLM Airlines in Holland, they said, can we put this on the cover of our in-flight magazine going to LA? But we'll do that only if you replace that jet with a KLM jet. So I redrew, stuck it on, and then they photographed it, and it was on the in-flight magazine.
Well, that's a very interesting history. So you tried to do something special on your own, got shot down, and then it still ended up getting printed anyway.
Yeah, I know. What are you gonna do? That happens a lot in freelance stuff when you're trying to do your own thing. It happens a lot. It's a great idea. It looks great, and it just doesn't work always. It's just.
Wow. Yeah, I love it. It's fun. Yeah. Marcus says USA won that year because the USSR boycotted it. Oh man. But very fun. Definitely very fun. And we could say that, yeah, if anybody actually wanted one of those 25 posters that are left, you'd be happy to sell one to somebody and sign it and whatnot and send it out. So just let people know that. I want to put this out there. I've told people to go to your CAF Gallery and make to make any inquiries or ask you questions about anything, but your email address as well, is over at Gmail. And I think people, if they have any questions, it's, another way to reach out to you. But the CAF Gallery is definitely the easy opportunity. And then that way, you kind of keep things focused on comic art fans that way. But,
but I have a lot of stuff, I have stuff that I have forgotten about until I find it. That's just the way that goes.
Exactly. That's what you should have been cataloging.
But then I wouldn't have time to work,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And again, we're only going to be showing a few things off, but we wanted to, you had touched on it earlier too, like if people ever wanted something recreated, and there's been oddly enough, we had a discussion about recreations the other day. And maybe I should get your opinion as an artist. If you do something that's a line for line copy of another drawing, I mean, it's a recreation, right? At the end of the day, it's that by definition is, I mean, because to me that's the way it is as well. I think like an homage might be something where you take something that is a memorable image, and you use it as the basis for what you want to do. You tweak it, you change a character or all the characters on it, but you use the same layout.
Right.
Would you agree or?
Well, in what way? I mean, are you talking about taking something that already exists and making a copy or?
Oh yeah, like you're saying, a recreation. Like, I can show this image here, like from Lady and the Tramp, for
Oh,
instance,
right.
right? Uh, to me, this is a recreation. It's
Yeah.
close line to line. For this image that everybody knows. If
Yeah.
they've seen a Disney movie, but and so recreation is the way you would term this as well, right? I mean, it's
Right. Yeah. Probably the only difference is that this is for ViewMaster and
right.
did the original pencil for ViewMaster anyway. So yeah. So what I did was I took that same pencil and didn't cell paint it, which is how ViewMaster did it, but I did it in airbrush and watercolor, and that scene was only really made for ViewMaster, and that where everybody's positioned that way because they love the 3D aspect of it. So
Okay, that makes sense.
if you look at the movie, it's not set up that way, but something that ViewMaster taught me was how to set up a scene to get the right depth and make it a little more 3D, even when you're just doing 2D.
Hmm.
That's when I did that maybe a year ago, and I just love it. And that's the kind of stuff that I can do also if there's a scene or something that I've done or that you really love that actually came out really nice compared to even to the ViewMaster one, because it's so flat and cell painted, which is what it was.
Hmm. So this was something that you had done for ViewMaster early in your career, or
Well,
the original piece. This is the piece you did a year ago, but you had the original pencil still from that
yeah,
first work.
original pencil. I did all the art for that book and all the 3D for that book, the right eye, left eye, for that reel set at the time. So
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to ask you when you're talking about the ViewMaster. I assume they had some kind of device that allowed you to check your work. I assume.
yeah, what it was back a long time ago when someone wanted to have a 3D X-ray, they would take two photos, a little distance apart, two cameras, and then they would take those films and put them on a flat tray and then look at them through, which actually was like a really big ViewMaster viewer. And you just look down on it and you could see, your brain would put it together. You'd see two separate images. Your left eye would see that one and your right eye would see that one. And your brain would make them three-dimensional. And that was what they did for 3D x-rays of the body. So somehow ViewMaster got a hold of one of these x-ray viewers, and it was actually perfect for doing 3D for ViewMaster, which was really a complicated way to do it. The way they did it. It was, if I think back on it, it was probably the hardest thing to learn. And it was really difficult to figure out. But then once you figured it out, you could move pretty quick through. Because originally, ViewMaster would do a Disney movie, and there was a guy in the back who would actually create all the sets, and they would photograph them with two cameras, and then they would put them into the reels so it looked 3D. Well, they figured out that one guy couldn't do all the products they wanted to make, so they had to figure out a way to do this with drawings, and then that became the standard there for quite a long time.
I haven't looked through a ViewMaster in a very long time, but I'm 56, so I used them a lot as a kid, and I do remember, movies, stills being in the ViewMasters, then going into comics and cartoons. So yeah, kids miss out. They don't know what they didn't get to enjoy.
It was kind of magical, really, but it was magical to do it because you had to be exact on every single line, or else one line would look like it was receding and one line would look like it's popping out too far.
Mm-hmm.
It was a scientific sort of an experiment that worked, and to trick the brain into thinking, okay, that looks real, even though it's a cartoon.
Interesting. So I'm just reading through the chat, make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, Mr. Rejek says he still has his ViewMaster. All right. I love to hear that. I do not have mine. I actually I picked one up at like a Goodwill store once, an old one, because I thought it was so cool, but I don't think I have that anymore. But yeah, that's pretty neat. So yeah, stereo viewer. I think that it had a couple different names back in the day. And they used to have something where you kind of slid it on on an arm to kind of get the
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's an old concept to take two cameras, mount them,
Mhm.
and then view them that way, and you can see in 3D. But to do it with drawings was interesting.
There you go. Southern Comic Geek has his. Larry's got two. That's great. Yeah, I used to collect cameras as well because I worked at a Goodwill store right after I got out of college, and I remember having even a stereo camera, that
Yeah,
actually had two lenses on it. I never used it, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever to have that. I don't know, it probably was a short-lived fad at some point in the '60s, but it was neat to have.
yeah, yeah.
Let's see here. I think did I show all the graphics? I mean, let's see. One other thing. You'd sent me this picture of a bus, which I think is funny. People get to be the animals in the bus. That what was that? Where is this? Because it doesn't look like it's in the U.S.
No, that
Clearly.
was in Amsterdam. That was in Amsterdam. That's the
Okay.
new tram that I got to design, and it's too bad you can't see the other side where the doors are because I would have animals. It was sort of an animated. Every time the door would open, there'd be a meeting of the animals on the other side as the door closed. But yeah, that went around Amsterdam for quite a few years after it was made. It went from the central station out to the zoo, and that was fun. It was a big project.
Wow. And so this is really before you got into doing a lot of licensing work. But you can see that you've got a unique style already, here before you got into that. But that's why you're so versatile, just clearly.
Yeah, and then the old west stuff was totally different thing as well because that was more of a tin type look to them.
Mhm.
That was way back. That's when I was really just starting, but that was before I did any licensing stuff.
Oh, right. Actually, I know this is something a little different. The image on the left is kind of a likeness to, sort of commission piece that you did, but I know that you sent me the tintype image as well. That's the one on the right.
Yeah, that's something that I can do too. Is put somebody into a Western scene, which is kind of fun. I did it to myself one time, and it's really great to see yourself in the old West because it's just to do that. On the one on the left, that's my father, and then two of the guys I grew up with from first grade on. Uh, all of them look perfect in that setting. So
No, that's really nice. So yeah, again, just other things that people can make inquiries with John about if you're interested in having anything special done. Clearly, good at likenesses and good at I assume you could do things with some of the licensed characters that you have. If I was a huge Sesame Street fan, I could be you could maybe do a picture of a version of me next to Oscar the Grouch or something, and
sure,
we could work that out.
I could do a caricature of you, or I could actually put him in a photo of you next to you. Like you're sitting on the steps.
I wouldn't even mind like Oscar the Grouch wearing a T-shirt that had my likeness on it. That might, but again, so the thing is, pretty much the sky's the limit. If anybody ever wanted you to do any work and you had an interesting idea,
Yeah,
John would be the guy who might be able to tackle that. So again, John's CAF Gallery is linked in there, everybody. So if you have a gift that you need for next Christmas and you got the niece you can't buy anything for, John might be your guy to put something together. But yeah, that's good. I wanted to say Larry's comment because Larry said that for his midlife crisis, he didn't buy a sports car or cheat on his wife. He bought a ton of Viewmaster reels. Hey, that's good. We
the ones that I've done. Who knows?
probably exactly. Um, let's see. Make sure I didn't miss any. I want to make sure I didn't miss any of the slides because I put together a couple here. I think that was all of them I got to. Yeah, I got all the images in there. But why don't we can go ahead and just show the pieces that we have for sale and just remind everybody that, the thing is you have so much more work. And, what you see today just kind of is a good like reminder of the things that you've worked on. And if people see something that might be close to what they want, or would be interested in getting, or potentially having something, recreated or commissioned, these things should kind of give you a little inspiration to reach out to John and to see what else you may have, because we don't have any Sesame Street pieces in the set, unfortunately. And I saw a Ninja Turtle thing. We don't have anything for that. So there's plenty of other pieces in here. One thing I wanted everybody to know is that the artwork is with John too. We kind of did this spontaneously. A lot of times, John, people, I'll work with an artist and they'll send me the pieces that they have for sale, and then I just handle everything, right? But John and I decided that he's got everything. He's good at shipping stuff. Clearly, the early part of his career, he shipped everything, and FedEx does pick up these days, so that does make it a little bit easier. So John will be the one who will be handling the sales, the transactions, getting any mailing addresses, and and doing all the communications after the show is over. So but I'm here to help. If anybody has any questions or needs anything, clearly I respect John's work a lot, but I want to make sure everything goes smoothly too. And as far as I think we talked about, I did make a slide for that, didn't I? What did I do? I made a slide about payment options too. So you'd like to take Venmo, you can also do PayPal. And then again, any inquiries that people might have after the show, there's the email address to use. And again, feel free to reach out that way, or go to your CAF Gallery. And if you need to, you can email me, bill@comicartfans.com, and I'm happy to kind of pop in and help facilitate anything that anybody might want.
Yeah, just whatever you're thinking of, just conversation. Who knows what,
Yeah, because one thing that John and I thought of right before the show was even, I don't know why it didn't occur to me that the idea that straight up commissioning and trying to set up some just general single character prices and stuff. So we put something together just kind of as a guideline. If anybody wanted to get any 9x12 related, commissions done, we put some prices in there. 9x12 single character, no background, torso, $200. If you want it inked and colored, whether I wrote down colored pencil, it might be done in a different manner that John would prefer to do. $275 full figure options for that as well. And of course, again, if anybody has their own idea on something, there's the email address again. You can navigate that with John and kind of figure out, what you want. I mean, I don't think, John, you would be averse to doing a multiple character piece, but obviously those prices, would be a little bit different.
Yeah. All depends. There's the complex, there's simple, there's, it's like any other job. And please, if you have an idea, just send it to me and we can talk about it. I mean, it'd be a lot of fun to do at the same time. And
have you done any Star Wars stuff? I know we have a lot of Star Wars fans out there.
Star Wars. I didn't do any Star Wars Star Wars stuff, but if you tell me what it is you want, I can do that.
You drew a grumpy cat. That's just like a couple shades away from Yoda, in my opinion. So
yeah.
I know my Star Wars fans in the audience are cringing right now, but it's true. It's true. There's a commonality between those two characters. All right, well, we'll just go ahead, because that's the fun thing, I think, when looking at these pieces too, is just I think there's stories behind all the pieces as well. And this first piece, I'd pretty much forgotten about this cartoon before I had until I saw this. But this is from Cow and Chicken on the Cartoon Network, and I don't know what it was used for, but so kind of tell me what it was used for.
It was a promotional piece early on when Cow and Chicken were just being put out there, and lots of times I was asked to do something early on and then they would use it in all sorts of ways. It could have been in an ad, it could have been something that they wanted to promote, and there were a lot of those at the time. And then these things, this is the original ink and color that I did. So there's some things, price-wise, it's because they're the real thing. They're the thing that was sent and the things that were used. And it's kind of, I can do things now that's a little different than things that were done 20, 30, 40 years ago. There's that history to them, and it makes them really special and rare, and it's really fun.
Right. I mean, this was 26 years ago. And Marcus, who's our resident comedian, said it's utterly fantastic. Yes, absolutely. And yes, we don't have to censor a cow's udders like I sometimes will censor a nude image or something that we have on here. That's very true.
Yeah.
And again, this was done on acetate and inked on it, colored, everything. So that's this one. And then let's see, what was the I'm just going to kind of run in order here. This is the piece we looked at earlier. We had the editorial notes. This was that the Dexter cover that was done. Now, so the final piece was done on acetate as well.
Done on acetate, and with that you get all the pencil drawings and the rough ink that was before that ink.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually get.
Yeah, it was funny. You showed that rough ink, and it looked like the finished piece. I mean, I don't know, but really, again, what do I know? But when you held that up after showing the pencil piece, I mean, maybe you could show that to me. I assume that. I mean, it looks like it should be the finished piece.
Well, it's almost. There's a couple of things missing about the gun, where they come together.
Okay, yeah.
That was a little different, changed a little bit. So, but I had to do that a lot. Lots of times I sometimes find I did 4 or 5 different versions of something before it was done. But like the reason that that's so special is because that only exists. That's the only thing there is for that book, and that's it. There's just one of them, which is really nice.
How often did you see stuff like this get like reused? I assume frequently, right? I mean, as far as maybe it's different per company that you worked for, that would reuse things, but.
And they generally didn't, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
They would just like, I've never seen that on anything else. There's the only ones that would be reused inside were like Dexter or Dee Dee. Dexter maybe in a certain pose, or Dee Dee in a certain pose. They would intermix it once in a while as like a little side.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. But the rest of it was all unique to each page.
Very cool. And did they send you the copy of the book so you could actually see how it was published, or was that not?
Yeah, I got 10 of each, which was
10
nice.
of each. Okay. I mean, they do that in comics.
Yeah, I think I did 5 books for them in that time space.
Yeah, here was you were mentioning Dexter and Dee Dee, so here you get them both. She was always annoying.
Yeah.
Did you watch the cartoons to kind of get a feel for the characters too?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I mean, you just have to watch a few, and then you kind of get the idea of how they interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the pencil for that. I just saw it this morning, actually. So that would go with it.
That's fun. Now, I mean, yeah, I know you sent me the cover image too. Do you do the covers on these? Or did you do all the interiors on them as well?
Did everything for that book.
Did everything. So we're just showing a page from a book that you pretty much have all the art from.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess that's something we should be stressing here. It's back to what we said at the beginning. There's so much more artwork. We wanted to just kind of get some representative pieces out here so you knew what was available. But yeah, now that you know that John worked on so many of these things, covers are still out there. The interiors are all still out there. John just has to find them.
Yeah, each book had like 30 pages. So, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's, yeah, there it is.
Yep. Now this next piece is one that you talked about a little bit earlier too, and this was that that fully painted Lion King piece, and you had mentioned earlier that typically Disney didn't return any finished pieces that would be done to this degree. You get and so I made a couple slides of this because it shows you how that the image on the right is or right top is like, remember back in the old days where you had to pop things out of cardboard to make put it all together. That's basically how this piece was used.
Right, yeah. And then but you had to do the whole piece, and then they would cut it later.
Mm-hmm.
The time they might change their mind on how they would design it. So,
but fortunately, now this one, so you actually mailed this in, they scanned it, and then they still sent it back to you.
Yes, they did, which was quite wonderful, actually. But Yeah, it was done on scanner board, which is, I don't even know if you can buy it anymore. I have a box still that I haven't used. It's a watercolor, really nice watercolor paper on a board with a really low tack sticky on the back. So back then, when you painted on it and was done, they could peel it off the board, run it through the scanner, and stick it back on the board, and that way it would protect it. But you also had a nice flat surface to work on, because when you're mixing watercolor and airbrush, and I would use also acrylics on it, paper tends to move and bow on you. And this was nice. It kept it nice and flat.
Huh. I've never heard of scanner board before. That's interesting. Wow. It's I just can't even imagine that they actually would have a low tacky, substance that would allow them to put it on take it off for the scanning process and then put it back on the other board to kind of protect it. That's crazy.
Yeah, the scanners were a big drum, and so
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I worked in pre-press. That was my
okay.
first job getting out of art school because I couldn't figure out, what I wanted to do. And absolutely, everything was on a big drum. But I've just never heard of that.
I'm
I'm
looking at
shocked.
I'm looking at a box of it now. Maybe I have the last box. So if I'm ever going to do a big airbrush piece, I would use it.
Mhm. Interesting. Huh. Well, this is cool. Congrats. I mean, did you do all the art for the game at the
Yep.
end of the day?
I
So
did
you
all,
got it, and you got all of those pieces back.
yep. Which was, yeah, I got all those pieces back.
Very, very nice. So let's see. The next piece I've got is from Dumbo. And again, assuming you did the whole book, not just this one page.
Yeah,
First
I don't
read.
think I ever did pieces out of any book. I always had the cover and the interiors of all the Disney stuff that I did, and Sesame Street stuff I did, and Cartoon Network. And I have the drawing of that also, which would go with it, of that's an inked piece on acetate too, and it's a pretty.
Mhm.
And then I would put it into the computer, and then that's a digital painting of it.
Did you do the colors then too?
Oh yeah,
Yep. Well, I'm so glad that you did it traditional for the line art.
I know. It's a great combination. I don't think exists very often, and I've done so much digital work since those days. I have boxes filled with CDs that I burned of all my work. Also,
Hmm.
I do have a nice shot of, or a nice part of my career with original stuff that I don't think many people have. But it's a great piece. It's really nice. Even in the attic, it came out perfect. There's no scrapings of it. There's no, because it's all done with cell vinyl brushwork.
Okay.
So
I mean, it looks as good as the day you painted it.
I
You
know.
know, I would think that some of the work on acetate that maybe it might flake or something at some point, but it doesn't. That's amazing.
I think it's because they were all laying on each other for decades. There's
Right.
nothing could happen.
Yeah, we have a gentleman who works for the state of Nevada as an archiver, and he always talks. We had a talk once about animation artwork and how the cells and the paints can off gas and you can have issues with that. But since it doesn't look like you've had any issues with it, I mean, because you talk about not bagging it so that it all kind of stays together. I mean, you've taken good care of everything. It looks like.
It wasn't intentional. It was just thrown in a box.
Little did you know.
I know.
Then let's see. Here is this isn't the color version of the Ed and Eddie piece, but this is the line art that went on the book cover for this. And I was kind of when I saw that I was curious. Did you do the other artwork from here? Those three other images?
Yes, I did. I have the Dee Dee one, and I have Johnny Bravo. And that one above it there's, I can't remember the name of that character. That I did do, pulled that out of something. But all the rest I have.
I don't remember the name of that cartoon either, but I remember watching it, and Maureen hated it because it was always, just crazy. They were on a farm, right? And the dog was always like seeing aliens or, some kind of creature coming. Okay, Courage the Cowardly Dog. Thank you, Stingray. I could not remember that either.
Okay,
Wow. So there you go. That's again just part of the whole process here in pulling these together. And this is a golden book. So this was a job that was done. Was it done through Network, or were you working for Golden Book on this particular job?
Golden Book.
Okay.
Then they had their deal with Cartoon Network.
Right. Well, let's see. Well, then we can take a look at, because you did basically a recreation of the image that we just saw you draw in the video that we showed. So
Right.
this is something, and we wanted to show this because like you had said, you can recreate pretty much anything in whatever style somebody would want, and so this was done in colored pencils and ink on Bristol, I imagine.
Yep. And it can be done in cell paint or
Mhm.
airbrush or watercolor or whatever someone would want, or whatever would work best, because colored pencil is nothing like what it originally supposed to look like, but it works out okay. It's very nice. It's a nice piece.
I completely agree. And let's see here. What's the next one? Oh, that was right. So Ghostbusters. Again, and it's Viewmaster. So just I can't even imagine all of the different IPs that you worked on with Viewmaster. But here's another example. Having done a Ghostbusters piece. I mean, how you definitely never were bored, John. You always had 5 projects going on at any given time. But come on, the Ghostbusters animated show was I mean, that's something I actually enjoyed too. So here you got to do the box art for the Ghostbusters Viewmaster.
Yeah, I did that was a really fun one. I did the design of the box, all the art and all the reels and all the 3D and all the art that's on the box. So that's what and I still have that box. That's that they gave me.
So you only got one of those. They didn't give you 10 like they give you.
No, I was lucky to get one. That's good. But rare stuff to have the from the front of the box.
Right, exactly. That's very, very cool. And I think what was the next piece was something with one of the slide Viewmaster cells. So this is the line art to that. And did you do I assume you did the cells on these too?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that has an overlay on it with different colors, because they would do a trick with your eyes when you wanted it to vibrate. It was kind of a cool trick. On one side, you do blue ray gun coming out, and the other side, you do white. And when you view them together, they vibrate. Your brain can't figure out what it's looking at. And so it would be motion. And that's high tech in those days. So there you go.
Optical tricks. Well, we're still, obviously that's it's still a thing, right? Trying to see shapes and numbers and words and but Viewmaster was ahead of their time, tricking the eye into getting like you said, 3-dimensional things or animation when there wasn't really anything there that was animated. Just kind of I guess making the eye you're just fooling it at the end of the day. That's cool.
Yeah, and you could also bring something in the picture outside the frame towards the viewer with that process.
Mm-hmm.
So it looked like it was breaking the frame that held the picture. It was fun to do. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And then let's see this next one. No, so before I go though, so do you actually have the color, the inked and colored acetate piece for this too, or is that?
On some of them, I still have the inks, and on a few of them, I have the colors.
Okay. I know there's some Ghostbusters fans out there, so those are the kind of questions people will have. Like, if I could buy the pencil art and the inked art and maybe the color piece, they might like to see pieces like that. So again, these are all representative pieces of IPs that you've worked on. And if people have questions after the fact, John's CAF Gallery link is right down in the description. You can send inquiries to him about those. But the next one you had said was used for the '96 Olympics in some way, and I tried to Google it. I was trying to look at Turner Field from the '96 Olympics. I couldn't find it, but where was Jane Jetson used for that?
I did a mural that went into the food court of Turner Field, and Cartoon Network, since Turner owned Cartoon Network, they wanted a whole bunch of images that would go on the walls all around, and so I did all the inks, and then did them in digital color. But I have all the inks for all the Jetsons. There's the ones with the whole family. There's Jane. There's Quick Draw McGraw. I have a whole, like, an animated eight long drawing of Quick Draw McGraw throwing the baseball. Magilla Gorilla. Bunch of other characters. Droopy, all doing things that were inside the food court at the time. And the inking on that is all brush with very little pen.
Mm-hmm. And again, it just comes back to, if we could name it, the only characters we haven't had that we've named that you've not worked on is Star Wars related characters so far. So right. You touched on pretty much most of the other pop culture and popular characters from the 80s onward. And James says he always wanted one of those cards. I think we all did, James.
Yeah.
James, this is actually up James's alley. James is at a kid's birthday party today, by the way, because he was just texting me on my phone. But this almost reminds me of you, James. As a matter of fact, it's a Johnny Bravo promotional image from 1996. And I mean, I've seen this image before. So this was something. Yeah. How did they ask you to do this particular artwork?
Yeah, I was doing it at the time. I got quite a few Johnny Bravo scenes, and it was some were on books and some were just promotional pieces. And there was also in the Olympic Stadium as well. But this one was just to be a promotional piece. And I just recently saw it, the one on the right there. I Googled Johnny Bravo, and that's what popped up. It was that image, and it's very old now, but it still pops up. And I have the rough pencils and the inks of all that as well.
So is there 3 pieces then, or is it just 2? Is it the pencils and the?
There'd be a rough, there'd be the pencil, there'd be an ink, and then there would be an ink with the color on it.
Got it. So 3 pieces for that. Yeah,
it's a fun piece. It really is nice.
Well, Johnny Bravo was regular dinner time TV for my family. So we didn't talk much as a family around the dinner table. Hopefully my wife's not listening right now, but we watched a lot of cartoons. It kept everybody in line, and they ate all their vegetables. So yeah, for Johnny Bravo was a regular one there. So that one was lot 11 at $500, and then then the next piece. I kind of talked about this earlier. This was the work that you did on some of the Jungle Book stuff, where you all that you have now are really just the finished pencil and blue pencil works like this one, because you also did everything in color. I can show I want to show the image, as it was when you painted it. Did the painted piece come back for something like this?
No, it didn't come back. So all that's left is the pencil, and they're really nicely detailed pencils, and it's an unusual shape. And I did I think 2 or 3 Jungle Books, but this is the one with the largest format, and gave me the most room to work, and a lot of stuff going on in it. And I have pencils of the cover art as well. In fact, I think I did it like half a dozen times before it was settled on. It would still look like that.
Yeah, the cover art is or the cover image is the one on the left there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did want to acknowledge that I saw that, what is it? That I can't even pronounce that name. Dakar Quiteco Lego has claimed the Johnny Bravo. So we appreciate that. They're a
Right.
fan clearly of Peanuts. Now, see Peanuts. Now we have to actually say, have you done any work for any Charles Schultz related characters?
I have 2 images of Snoopy. I was getting approved to do Charlie Brown, and they asked me to do a couple Snoopies, and I did, and they got approved. And then I got on to something else, and I never did get work for that. And I also did it for Hello Kitty. I have an image of Hello Kitty, and I also got okay to do Barbie at the time, and I also got to do, gosh, there's a few that you do. Like here's one that was for, I recognize it.
Oh, for Toy Story.
That was my piece to get approved to do Toy Story books. And
So you really went all out. You wanted to make sure they knew that, not only could you do the line art if it was going to be for a coloring book or a storybook, you wanted to show them that you could paint it and paint it in a way that was going to knock their socks off. I mean,
they were hard to please, Disney, but that's what you had to do. There was no other way. If it was less than that, you weren't going to get the job. So it wasn't even.
And you figure you'd already done so much work for Disney. You'd think at that point they know you have the chops, the skills to paint it, to do the line work, to color it yourself if you want, and digital color it if it needed it. And yet you still had to go through the same approval process to complete a finished work of art that should be hanging on the wall somewhere, like this the Mickey piece and the Mickey Minnie piece you showed earlier to get work with Disney. That's it's surprising, but I don't know. I guess it's in its own weird way. It's kind of cool too, right? They still want to make sure you've got what the skills that they want.
Yeah, because if you can do Toy Story, or if you could do Lady and the Tramp, you might not be able to do Toy Story because there is a little difference. There's a different shading. There's different textures.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that they really, really pay attention to. And so as long as you hit those, it was really good. And then they'd also the turnover there. They get a new art director. They get a new executive.
Oh yeah.
And they would have a whole different mindset sometimes, and they wouldn't know who you were. So you'd have to prove yourself again and again and again. Even though I had this blanket thing to do all the classics, and I've done a bunch of them. Yeah, everyone, prove it again. Just prove it again one more time.
That begins to make a little bit of sense. I mean, Disney's a huge company, right? You're going to probably work with a different art director on most projects, unless it's a book series or something like that. And even then, you might be bounced around between a couple different editors, since they could move those people internally too. So I get it.
Yeah, sometimes new art director had their favorite artist, and you'd have to break through that because they'd worked with a couple people that they were comfortable with, and then come in, and you have to prove to them that, because all they really wanted to do was give you the job, and they can go home, and they would get it, and it would be what Disney liked, and it would make them happy. So that's all. That's all.
It's a good job if you can get it, I guess. But yeah, I'll just show this once more, just so you know. I mean, so you're not getting any of the color pieces on here. You're just getting the finished line art on it. If you were to pick this up, and that's really all that's left, because who knows where the finished painted pieces are these days. They're in a Indiana Jones vault at Disney somewhere, probably never to be seen again after they digitized it and put it on a CD. So
yeah, probably threw them away. Who knows? I think, but they'll never come out. I can't imagine them doing that.
Right. No, I mean, and that's unfortunate, because they could open a museum practically, right, of all the artwork that they probably have, if there was ever anybody out there who could catalog it and actually pull it all together. Like Lucas is doing with the the museum that he's putting together in California. I mean, that's not all just going to be artwork from his collection and things that he's kept from Star Wars related stuff, but something similar. Disney could certainly do the same thing if they really wanted to. I mean, I know that they do have exhibits at the parks every once in a while, but it's not, it's not large or comprehensive in any way.
Right.
Let's see. So lot 13 is this is a little different. This is one where you did a recreation of a scene from a book of The Little Mermaid, and it's done on 11 by 17. And now, did you do the original artwork from the book, or was this one that you just recreated kind of on your own?
No, I did that. I did the original. I did the whole book, the Mermaid book, and that scene, that picture on the upper right, the original one, is what got me the book to do. That was my sample. They liked it. They let me do the rest of the book, and then that's why it always became a favorite scene of mine. So I did it in colored pencil, just to try a different medium. But that can also be done in, just like I did it then, in watercolor and airbrush.
Well, that's beautiful. And again, that we wanted to show the variety of things that you can do. Not only that you have a lot of the original work or all of the original work still in your possession, but you can do recreations and slightly different styles. And I wanted to highlight that James did claim this as well. Thanks, James, because again,
Wow.
And James is at a kid's birthday party. Maybe he's buying the gift for the kid right now. Oh, his wife loves The Little Mermaid. Okay, perfect.
Oh,
That's absolutely perfect. James, you're gonna have to go back and rewatch the interview side of things so you get to know John a little bit. John's been in the business for over 40 years, has worked with so many different licensees and IPs, and you'll be impressed with. I mean, we haven't even probably scratched the surface of the number of different IPs and things that he's worked on in his career, and is still working on, of course.
Thank
And
you,
there's a
Jay.
Peter Pan piece on the wall right beside you.
I'm sorry?
I see the Peter Pan piece on the wall right beside you.
Yeah, I was kind of in the process of doing that. There it is. I did that. It's one of those tall books like the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Did the cover, and that was my kind of what I did before I did this painting, and I was going to redo it again, and just because I love the scene, and I wanted to just do it again, and I haven't got around to it yet.
Well, hey, well, that's because you're too busy. But thank you, James, for picking that one up. So I forget. Oh, it's Winnie the Pooh is the next piece. So this was that's on a 9 by 10 image on 11 by 14 vellum, and this was done for a book in 1997. So and you've done you did a series of Winnie the Pooh books, right? You mentioned that earlier too, right? How many total Winnie the Pooh books did you do from cover to cover, basically?
Over 25.
Over 25. Wow.
And I did all that kind of that nice era of the hardcover books that Disney Press put out. The Honey Tree, the bedtime stories, Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthday ones. This one, that's one of my favorite scenes I've done of all the Pooh things. There's just something about it from that grand adventure, and it's just great. And it's clean. It was, like I said, it was protected by all the others, and it's done on a really nice vellum with mechanical pencil, because there's so much going on. When I transfer it to watercolor, I have to use a tracing table, and I have to have, because you got the watercolor paper on top, which dims the light coming through. So I put it on vellum, because if I put it on paper and then through another paper, it's too dark to see. So I can see it when I go ahead and pencil it again in order to paint it. Because then I would paint it and then I would outline it with brush. And if you look really close at the cover, the real cover, the details are really tiny. So it's quite a long process. And then this was a special one because of all the characters like that.
Right, and like you noted there, and I put it into the slide, the color watercolor art remains in the Disney vault.
That's
So,
it. It
You
does.
know, so which again, so this is all that we have left from it. And I assume the whole interiors to this book and the other ones were mostly done in the same manner, painted as well for the
Yeah,
finished piece. Yep.
all of them were hand painted and then hand outlined, and a little bit of airbrush here and there on these because sometimes you'd want to darken a little area. And but yeah, and then little tiny brushes with acrylic paint was all the outlines.
Fantastic. And I just saw we had another claim for this one. Zero
Whoa,
Kiori. Thank you very much.
very nice. Thank you so much. You'll really love it. It's really clean and crisp. And
So for Zero and also for I'm not even going to try Dash Lego. We'll put John's email address up and contact information up after the show, so you can reach out to him. So yeah, that's just so everybody knows. As soon as the show's over, and if you claim any artwork, we want you to reach out to John, and he'll work out giving you his Venmo or PayPal information, so you can take care of the payment. And again, we appreciate everybody who's been enjoying the show, and also those of you who are picking up a piece, or if you're inquiring for something later. We really do appreciate it. I knew this was going to be fun, John. I'm enjoying it. I hope you are enjoying your first interview in 40 plus years of doing this.
I am. This is really fun. This is really fun. I never get a chance to talk about stuff, and a lot of things I haven't seen in many years, and it all brings back memories for me because doing it, you're sort of so focused on it that you remember certain things more than other things.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, here's another one from a show that we watched a lot at the dinner table growing up. Okay, but not me growing up. My kids growing up. This is from a Rugrats movie storybook that you got to do. I imagine all the work on, from the cover to throughout the interiors as well. This is for the line art only. Is this a similar situation where you did the colors too, or were the colors done digitally, or what's the story on that one?
Yeah, I did the colors in the computer.
Okay.
Did the sketch, then the ink, scanned the ink in, colored it, and that was the one done for the movie. So that was a kind of like their big adventure. And I have all that stuff too. I did 3 books of theirs, 3 or 4, if I remember. Rugrats stuff. I did the one where Dill Pickle was born, which was really a fun book too.
Did you do what was it? Real Monsters? Was that it's kind of in that same era, right?
Yeah, but I didn't do that one. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I never did do that one.
Those were really crazy looking.
Yeah,
but it was always in the same vein. I loved both of those. Rugrats was fun, and it was weird, as a 40-year-old father watching a show about little babies basically and still enjoying it. It was different, but they did such a good job with the stories. So again, really cool. Like you said, you probably did 3 books, and you have the cover image, and you also have all the interiors for these as well. So if anybody is a fan of Rugrats, there's plenty of work out there. If you didn't like this image, go pull out your copy of the book and find one that you do like, and John's probably got it.
Yeah, I think there's another one up there from a cover of Rugrats. I think that's coming.
What did I miss one in the set that you sent me? Let me see.
There's one of, I think it's Rugrats and the Monkeys or something like that.
I don't think I got that one. I have this in the folder that that zip file you sent me. I have the Rugrat movie folder, and I do remember seeing something about what you just said. Maybe was that maybe in the other. Well, this is the only one I have to show at the moment.
Okay.
I didn't make a slide, but you're right. Now you say the word monkey, and I'm like, I know I read that somewhere, but I don't see it. And
it's the cover of that book, and it's a. Covers are special, also.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just poking through the folders now, and I don't see it. I don't know.
You just back again. That's all.
But all right. Well, we'll move on to the next one. But again, anybody has any interest in any Rugrats related material, John's your man. reach out through his CAF Gallery and make your inquiries. So then all the rest of the stuff is actually Superman stuff. And I know that you did a bit of work there. I think we're going to look at some ViewMaster pieces first. So from 1989, I mean, if anybody was picking up ViewMasters and looking at anything related to Superman back then, you probably had a hand in it. This is we also have the color piece. We have these kind of separate, but I imagine if somebody wanted to buy them all, we could probably work something out. But this is the just the pencil on vellum. It's a 10 by 9 image on 14 by 11. It's priced at $800. But was there a lot of back and forth editorially when you were working on Superman?
Not too much, but it had to be handled a little different because there couldn't have been as much cross-hatching in it because of the 3D process. So it was a little simplified version, but they were pretty good to work with. DC was at the time.
Okay.
And that's about my only, I really loved doing that. It was totally different. And I just like something that's totally different.
Well, that's so this is the pencil piece for it, and then you did still have the color piece from this as well from the ViewMaster.
Yeah, there's one of those. It's the right eye one, so the left eye one is gone somewhere, but it's a great piece of all of them together like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a computer on the desk too, I think.
I'm sorry?
That's a computer on the desk too from 1989.
I know.
That is a fun monitor, but yeah, I mean, it's just cool that these things exist. You know, I can honestly say I don't know if I would go to Comic Art Fans right now and see other ViewMaster artworks. I don't have the time to do it, but anybody in the chat has the opportunity to pop over there and see. I can't recall ever seeing any ViewMaster artwork out there before, and we have a lot of people who collect illustration related artworks that are that fall outside of your typical comic book related artwork. But yeah, there just isn't a whole lot of this out there.
But the great thing about ViewMaster is they did everybody, so I got a chance to do so many different things, and I kind of learned, like you talk about all the different styles. That's kind of where I really learned it, because all the time there comes something new.
Right.
Whatever was popular at the moment would come through, and we just do it really fast and get it done. And it was great quality, and everybody was really in on it. It was really a nice environment.
Sounds like it. I mean, that would be fun to have that many different IPs flowing through there. So here is another pencil only piece. The color one is MIA. But so for this is a good one. You get the Superman transformation. It didn't even have to go into a phone booth to do this. When Lois and Jimmy had their backs turned, he was able to do it. But again, this is on same size as the previous piece on vellum, and I think on this one you noted it was scene 3 from Reel B from that 1989 ViewMaster Superman reel.
Yeah, it's just so rare. That's the thing about it.
And indeed, nice transformation, says Stingray. I agree. And I actually went over to Comic Art Fans. The only piece of ViewMaster artwork on the site is that one Superman piece that you put out there. That's different from the stuff that we're going to show today. So yeah, there is none. That's how rare it is. Everybody, it doesn't exist. So this last piece is kind of like a 3-parter. We have them priced separately, but if you wanted to get them all to keep them all together, we could probably talk about it, something like that.
Together, I think you frame this all together, and it's really a nice setup.
Yeah, especially if you actually had the toy that would go with it as well. So lots 19, 20, and 21 are all kind of related to the same illustration as Superman, but it's from, it's a ViewMaster product, the Show Beam. I know I had one of these. I never worked really well.
No, they didn't work that great. You had to be.
You had to like hold it almost up to within like 5 or 6 inches of what you wanted. That image of showing it on your sibling's chest in that bottom photograph never worked quite right.
No.
Because you have to be in a completely dark room, so finding your sibling in a pitch black room would be impossible. So yeah, that didn't work out. But here you go. You get to do the Superman artwork for this, and so this is the pencil only piece. We put that at $400, and we also have the ink piece that we put at $5, and then we also have the and again, the ink piece is on clear acetate, and then the finished color piece is also on acetate with the colors. And I noted on here that we can do all three of them together, because they really should stay together at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
maybe
we
find a show beam package, somewhere on eBay or something, and frame it all together.
yeah, that would be great. That would be great. They actually get a show beam projector and put it in the frame too.
Yeah.
There's only, if somebody wants all three, we can work on a price for all three, because they kind of belong together. I don't see why.
So how do the cartridges work? Because I don't even remember. But so did you do artwork that would have been in the show beam cartridges that would go into that thing?
Oh yeah. The whole adventure is in that. So I have all the artwork for inside, which are they're simplified, so they would project okay.
Mhm.
But it's an adventure of some aliens coming down and, they're going to rob Fort Knox. That was the thing. So
It's an easy target to
Yeah.
the States for aliens. But again, back to that's so darn cool, John. I didn't even. I'm glad I asked. I mean, literally, not only did you do the packaging artwork for this, but you also did all of the artwork that went into the cartridge that did the show beam art. I mean, again, it's we could never ever do a show and kind of encompass everything that you've got to work on in your career. I mean, because back in the late throughout the 80s and the early 90s, there's so many things that felt innovative and cool like that, and
Yeah.
and you got to work on a lot of it.
I did.
So hey, I want to show this slide again to remind both the three people who picked up artwork today, and James and Dash Lego and Zero Kiori. The payment options are up there, but before you even do that, please email John, because John's got all the artwork. Shoot him an email, and like I always tell you in the other shows, in that first email, please include your YouTube handle so that he knows we can match that up to the piece, but also include your mailing address to get started with. It's always good to kind of have that out of the way, so if John needs to kind of check his FedEx account to get you the exact the shipping amount that's going to go on with these pieces, because the purchase prices don't include shipping. At least I don't think they do, John. We didn't talk about that, but when we do the shows here, we always tack on a generic shipping amount. You and I didn't talk about that, but my assumption is there'll be a shipping amount added onto that. But John will take care of all of that for you, since he has the artwork and he'll be handling the transactions after the show is complete.
Yeah, no, it'll be packed up real nice, and you'll love it. Thank you so much.
Southern Comic Geek is shedding a tear because there were no Ninja Turtles or Sesame Street. But Jason, all I would say is please shoot John an email, and worst case scenario, he could take a few photographs on his phone and email them to you of stuff that he has. And it sounds like there's definitely a lot of Sesame Street related work.
Yeah, there's a lot of Sesame Street. There's color work. There's also a lot of older Muppet stuff, which is.
See, the Muppet stuff sounds even interesting to me, because that's another dinner time, show that we would watch. The introduction to the Muppets is classic. I can watch that over and over.
Yeah, I have some nice pencil pieces of Muppets that, if you're into that, I mean, they're terrific. A lot of things done for greeting cards.
Mm-hmm.
There's Baby Muppets, which was kind of short-lived, but I have some of that. And Sesame Street, I got some nice pieces. If there's certain characters that you are interested in, just let me know, and I'll shoot you some pictures.
Right. Either you have it, or you can redraw it, or do something custom. Let's see. Southern Comic Geek wanted to know, did you work on the monster at the end of the book? I'm not even familiar with that one. But does that sound familiar?
Lookbook sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
Monster at the end of the book. No, I'm not familiar with it either. But Zero Curie said, I might need a Cookie Monster piece. Well, there you go. Obviously, Zero, you picked up a piece of art. You should, if you're interested in Cookie Monster piece, there's, ask John. He can probably send you a few examples of it too.
Yeah.
Save on shipping. Buy two pieces, and
there you go. Put it all together.
Yeah, where are you based out of? If you don't mind my asking.
No, just south of Atlanta, Noonan, Georgia.
Oh, okay, cool. So actually not too far from here. Yeah,
Not at all.
very, very nice. Oh, it had Grover in it, is what Southern Comic Geek is saying. Okay.
Yeah, I did a lot of Grovers too. Maybe I'd have to look.
I'm gonna Google it at the end of the book. Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you may have actually. Now that I see it, I can just share a screen and show it to you because it'll probably look familiar to you too. Let's see.
Lookbook sounds familiar, but
Here, actually, let me go like this. Move and then add it back. There we go. That'll make it a little bit bigger. Something like that. I mean, certainly a different art style than we've seen tonight, but probably something you had to emulate at one point or another. But like that there. So
yeah.
that's look familiar, at least because the way.
I didn't do that.
Okay.
But I've done a lot of Grover and I've done a lot of Elmo. I did a lot of early Elmos actually, and yeah, I have some color versions of that too. Some are right at the beginning when Elmo was invented, created.
Very see, well, there you go. So we don't have the monster at the end of the book, but we have plenty of Grover and Elmo too. Well, again, wow.
I have a Cookie Monster you might really like. It's a very large one. There's a Cookie Monster, and it's about healthy food, and he's by the refrigerator. I'll show him a picture of that. I think he'd really like it.
Okay. Well, there you go, Zero Curie. There's sounds like one cool piece, and probably others that John can send you as well. But and nice to have #1 Marvel fan pop into it. It's a Saturday during the summer. We know it's you can't always tune in, but you can watch it on the rewind. #1 Marvel fan. You might even see some artwork in there. No Marvel artwork, some DC stuff. But will I do a recap? I'm gonna send out a mailing with the pieces that didn't sell and remind everybody that give everybody John's Comic Art Fans Gallery, which is linked in the show description below, so that you can make your own inquiries for those pieces that we're showing or things that John has worked on that he can probably dig up and send you examples of as well. But John, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time today. I really do. I'm so glad you reached out and found CAF, and and we started up a conversation, and now we're here. This is really rewarding for me. I really enjoyed talking to you. Definitely an aspect. The funny thing is there's overlap from industry to industry in different ways, but certainly your story is very unique from any other creator that I've had the opportunity to talk with.
Oh, and thank you so much. It's been great. I hope we can do it again and show more stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, everybody, we appreciate you hanging out with us this Saturday afternoon, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And again, those of you who picked up any artworks, please shoot the email over to John. A reminder, one last time, kurtzartwork@gmail.com.
And thank you very much for buying them. They're great. You'll love them.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again next week on some future show. And again, we appreciate you.